Hello everyone. This video is about healthy boundaries, which is a life class that I have taken for a very long time. And this week in the gathering room, Martha Beck talked about this topic. Every week it's brilliant and enlightening. So I'm going to give you a little summary of what she said and then some thoughts of mine. So she dealt with this question of how do you balance being vulnerable enough to have intimacy with another person or other people, which we need. It's a psychological need that we have as humans. How do we do that? How do we balance that with also having healthy boundaries that protect our safety so that we're not used and abused, right? So she essentially presented an idea from Melody Beatty, who's the author of Codependent No More, called step and check. Step and check again and again. And so what that means is that you take a tiny step, you give a little morsel to the other person of your authenticity or some truth about you or some vulnerability, and then you stop and wait and observe and check how they handle it, how they receive it, right? Do they receive it with tenderness, do they honor it? Do they treat it well? Or do they stomp on it or ignore it or abuse it in some way? And so when they give you that feedback, right, then you can respond. And if they handle it well, then you take another step and you gradually can get closer and see how trustworthy another person is to handle your truth and your vulnerability. So I really liked that method for sure, but I also have a couple thoughts on it. Like I said, I was in a 10-year abusive marriage, and it was a combination of my first husband and myself and our dynamic together. So the first thing is, in order to use this method, step and check, you have to have the internal compass to allow yourself to check, right? If the other person is abusing that information, you have to have the permission to say, no, that's not okay. I am worth more than that. It's not okay to treat me that way. Now, for me, and for you, if you've grown up in a culture that tells you that you can't trust your own intuition, that you can't trust your own judgment, and that there's this kind of righteousness in putting yourself below other people or self-sacrificing, then when another person treats you poorly, it's kind of like, oh, I'm the martyr. Yes, I'm so good for doing that. It's a little bit twisted. So really foundationally, we need to understand our own value and the fact that it's okay to say no to someone who mistreats us. I really liked, actually, Martha shared that someone in a AA meeting once said, if the person next to you farts, you let them fart, but you don't have to keep sitting next to them. So it's kind of the same kind of thing. If someone next to you is treating you poorly, the boundary is moving away from them to value yourself. It's not a punishment of them. You're not forcing them to be different than they are. You're just removing yourself from harm's way. And so when you do get that negative feedback, being able to then set that boundary and protect yourself is so important. And then finally, the second thing, my response is, through learning internal family systems, it's really a game changer, because what I have learned, not just theoretically, but very experientially, is that the only person, or the most important person for me to develop a trusting relationship with, is myself. And my big S self, my capital S self, according to internal family systems, that wise, compassionate, gentle, curious, calm presence is the only one that can heal my trauma. And so when I repair that relationship, and I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, which I do now, that when I get hurt, that self will be there to hold me, to comfort me, to help me, to be kind and tender, then I can actually set other people free to not be perfect, to have their own, defensive parts and different things that come up, because I know that that self will be there. And I also can compare, oh, this self is treating me so well, and so when this other person isn't in alignment with that, it's really apparent. But I don't blame them. I can say, oh, I see that they have wounds underneath. But when they are expressing their needs in these tragic ways, as if they're emitting a fart, I can say, I'm going to remove myself because I'm valuable enough to do that. So I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions, and if you want to know more about internal family systems, it really is the most direct and effective way to repair that relationship with self and just have such a strong foundation to know when to set boundaries and how to be there for yourself when others cannot be. So thank you so much.